If you'd walked down Cottonwood Lane that rainy Tuesday morning, you might have missed the most important discovery of my life. The barns looked the same as always. Weathered wood, battered doors, the smell of sawdust and hay drifting on the damp breeze. I was 19, my hands blistered, and my mind already tired from dreams I didn't know how to chase. My cousin Harper, quieter than a whisper and always lost in her sketchbook, trailed behind me as we made our way through the maze of stalls for our morning chores. I'd been at Cottonwood Lane Equestrian Center for almost a year, shoveling stalls, lugging feed, learning to ignore the sneers from Charlotte Green and her clique. They said I didn't belong, too loud, too stubborn, too black for this polished legacy horse world. Maybe they were right, but I needed this job. I needed something that felt like a future. That's why I nearly ignored Harper's voice when she tugged on my sleeve. "Mari, wait. Over there in the old quarantine barn, did you hear that?" I stopped, broom in hand. The barn at the far end of the property was supposed to be condemned, locked up and left to rot. Still, through the steady rain, I caught a faint, desperate sound, a rough whinny, barely more than a cough. My heart started beating faster, something cold and electric slipping down my spine. "We're not supposed to go over there," I said, my voice steady but my feet already moving. Harper hesitated, glancing around. "Mari, if the manager sees—" "I'll go," I whispered. "Stay close." The old barn door creaked open under my hand. Inside, the light was thin and greenish, slanting through broken windows. The smell hit me first. Sour, sharp, the stench of neglect. Then I saw him, huddled in the corner. A Mustang, gray as mist, ribs showing under a dirty, matted coat. Blood crusted on one hock. His eyes were wild and half-crazed with fear. "Oh, no." Harper's voice broke. Just a soft exhale. The horse's tag read, "Dusty for slaughter." My hands curled into fists. Someone had left a half-rotted bale of hay and a dirty water bucket just out of reach. Dusty stared at me, muscles tensed, as if he expected another blow. "We can't just leave him," I said. My voice was shaking now, with anger, with something like helplessness. Harper's eyes darted around. "Mari, what if someone sees us? If we get caught? They're going to kill him, Harper. For what? For being scared? For being abandoned? I won't let that happen." "Please," Harper whispered, clutching her sketchbook to her chest. "Just be careful." That's when I made the first real choice of my life. I grabbed the old lead rope hanging by the stall, moving slowly, talking to Dusty in a low, even tone. "Easy, boy. It's okay. I'm not here to hurt you. I'm here to help." He snorted, ears pinned, but didn't move. I saw something in his eyes, a glimmer, a question. Was it possible? Could anyone care? Harper, brave in her own way, slipped behind me and set down her backpack. She found an old apple at the bottom and rolled it gently toward Dusty's nose. He sniffed it, wary, then took a tentative bite. That broke something in me. Maybe, just maybe, we could save him. The next hour was a blur of whispered arguments, half-baked plans, and adrenaline. We sneaked food and water to Dusty, cleaned his wounds with the first aid kit Harper always carried for her art supplies. I promised him, right there in the cold light, that he wouldn't die forgotten in this place. Then came the risk. My boss, Mr. Thompson, had eyes everywhere. Charlotte and her girls loved to gossip, watching every move I made. If they found out, I'd be fired on the spot, maybe worse. But I couldn't back down. I told Harper, "I'll come back tonight. We'll keep him alive. If we get caught, well, at least we tried." Harper's voice trembled. "I'll help you, Mari. But what if they blame us for his condition?" I'll take the blame, I said, fiercer than I felt. He deserves a chance. So do we. We slipped out, hearts pounding, just as the sky opened and rain battered the roof. Back in the main barn, I forced myself to smile, to act normal as Charlotte strutted by with her perfect blonde ponytail and smirk. "What's wrong, Mari?" she called. "Lose your nerve? Or maybe you finally realized you don't belong here." I stared back, silent. For the first time, I felt a spark of defiance that couldn't be crushed by words. I had a secret now, a purpose. That night, after the last cars left and the barn lights flickered out, Harper and I snuck back to the condemned barn. Dusty was waiting, shivering but still alive. Harper drew him line by careful line, capturing his pain and his hope. I cleaned his wounds, sang quietly, and promised again, "You're not alone, not anymore." As I walked home in the dark, soaked to the skin, I knew everything had changed. Saving Dusty wasn't just about a horse. It was about proving we mattered. That even in a world built on privilege and power, two girls from nothing could risk everything for what was right. And in that promise, in the trembling, battered hope in Dusty's eyes, I felt something like freedom for the very first time. Trouble has a way of finding those who don't know how to back down, and by Wednesday morning, the whole energy at Cottonwood Lane felt charged with storm clouds waiting to break. I couldn't shake the memory of Dusty's wild, haunted eyes or the way Harper's hand trembled as she clutched her sketchbook on the walk to work. I'd sworn to protect that Mustang, even if it cost me my job. We tried to blend in with the rhythm of barn life, but Harper kept shooting nervous glances at Charlotte Green and her little gang. Charlotte, the manager's niece, had been the star rider since she could walk, and she ruled the stables with an iron smile. Her clique trailed her like perfume, Olivia with her cold blue stare, and Madison, who'd laugh at anything Charlotte said, no matter how cruel. That morning, the manager, Mr. Thompson, stalked up and down the rows barking orders. He was in a bad mood, snapping at anyone who moved too slow. Charlotte caught him outside Dusty's stall, her voice pitched loud enough for everyone to hear. "Some horses are just a waste of space, Uncle David. You shouldn't keep broken things around. They drag down the whole barn." I bit my tongue, knuckles white on the wheelbarrow handles. But Harper, maybe braver than she knew, slipped her phone out, pretending to check the time and pressed record. She caught the venom in Charlotte's words, the way she eyed Dusty's stall with disgust. That's when the sabotage began. Sometime during lunch, while I was cleaning tack in the far aisle and Harper was sketching by the paddocks, Charlotte and her girls slipped away. I returned to Dusty's stall and stopped cold. Someone had dumped the clean water I'd left for him and scattered sharp splinters of wood in his bedding. Dusty stood in the corner, flanks heaving, panic rising. I knelt beside him, heart thudding. Who did this? Just then, Charlotte reappeared, all innocence and sugary malice. "What's wrong, Mari? Lose your touch with horses, or just forget how to care for them?" I forced a calm I didn't feel. "He was fine an hour ago," she shrugged. "Maybe he's just not cut out for real stables. Maybe you aren't either." That afternoon, Mr. Thompson called a staff meeting. The whole barn gathered in the tack room, the air thick with ammonia and suspicion. He glared at me, holding up a photo on his phone. Dusty's neglected stall. "This horse was left in dangerous conditions. This is unacceptable. Someone's going to answer for this." Charlotte's clique whispered and shot glances my way. I saw Harper's jaw tighten. Mr. Thompson leveled his gaze at me. "Mari, you were assigned this aisle. Either you start doing your job properly, or you're gone. And if you want to keep that animal, You're going to have to pay the board and medical fees in full, $2,500, by Friday. Otherwise, he's out. He'll be picked up for slaughter that afternoon. My blood ran cold. That's impossible, sir. Please, give us more time. No, he snapped. No more chances. You want to play the hero, you pay the price. The staff filed out, some avoiding my eyes, others whispering. Charlotte smiled sweetly at me as she passed. Looks like you're running out of time, Mari. I nearly crumpled right there, but Harper slipped her hand into mine, squeezing hard. Her eyes blazed with fury behind her glasses. They set us up, she whispered, voice shaking. I have some of it recorded. What do we do now? She took a shaky breath. We fight. We prove it wasn't you or Dusty. All evening, I worked twice as hard, scrubbing stalls, cleaning feed buckets, while Harper watched Charlotte's group, phone in hand. As dusk settled, we snuck back to Dusty. He was jumpy, bruised, and so thirsty it broke my heart. I stroked his neck, whispering apologies. We're going to fix this, boy. I promise. That night, we brainstormed in my tiny bedroom, Harper sitting cross-legged on the floor, reviewing video clips. We need proof, she said, more than just words. We need allies too, I said, thinking of the way some of the junior staff looked at Charlotte. Afraid, but not cruel. If we show the right people what's going on, maybe someone will help us. Harper hesitated. What if we get expelled? What if you lose your job and we can't help him at all? I stared at the ceiling, desperation mixing with anger. If we do nothing, we lose him anyway. We have to try. The next morning, we set our plan in motion. Harper would try to get more footage of Charlotte and her gang near Dusty's stall, risking getting caught and losing her volunteer spot. I'd ask around quietly, try to find anyone who might be willing to talk. We split up, nerves buzzing. Later that day, Charlotte made her move. She walked right up to Dusty's stall, glanced around, and poured something foul-smelling into his water bucket. Harper, hiding behind a stack of feed bags, caught the whole thing on camera. My heart pounded as Harper texted me, "Got it, but if she finds out, she'll go nuclear." We met in the hayloft, out of sight. Harper played the clip for me, clear as day, Charlotte sabotaging the stall. It was the evidence we needed, but if it got traced back to us, we'd be kicked out. Everything was on the line now. Our jobs, Dusty's life, our future. I looked at Harper, her face pale but determined. If we get caught, she cut me off. We're in this together, Mari, whatever happens. That night, as the barn settled into uneasy silence, I lay awake thinking about what we were risking. The fear was real, but so was the hope. Maybe if we were brave enough, we could save more than just a horse. Maybe we could change the whole story. Night at Cottonwood Lane always brought a strange hush. The laughter and chatter of riders faded, replaced by the soft nickers of horses and the distant hum of frogs out past the fields. That first night after the ultimatum, Harper and I moved like ghosts through the barn, careful not to draw attention. We waited until every light in the manager's office blinked out, and the staff's voices dwindled to nothing. Then, hearts thudding, we slipped toward the condemned wing where Dusty waited. Dr. Luz Rivera, the new stable vet, had always kept to herself, a serious woman with wise, watchful eyes and a calm presence. She'd arrived just weeks earlier, and while most of the staff didn't know what to make of her, I'd caught her more than once slipping treats to anxious ponies and speaking gentle Spanish to frightened colts. That night, as Harper and I crept into the shadows, I nearly jumped when I found her already kneeling by Dusty's stall, flashlight balanced between her knees, hands steady on the trembling Mustang's leg. She glanced up, her voice barely more than a whisper. You girls shouldn't be here. I hesitated, fear knotting my gut. Please, he needs help. She looked at me, then at Harper, who'd instinctively shielded her sketchbook like it was a secret. Dr. Rivera's eyes softened just a little. So do a lot of creatures in this place, Nina. Let's keep this between us. I'll treat his wounds, but you have to promise. Absolute silence. If Thompson finds out, he'll fire all of us. I nodded so hard my teeth rattled. Yes, ma'am. Thank you. As Dr. Rivera worked, Harper crouched beside her, sketching Dusty's battered body in the dim light. She murmured softly, tunes from childhood, songs about rivers and running free. Dusty shivered, but for the first time he didn't flinch from our touch. I stroked his neck, whispering, Easy boy, you're safe tonight, I promise. Dr. Rivera cleaned the cut on his hock, explaining as she worked. Old rope burns, maybe a kick. He's had it rough. I'll leave antibiotics, but you have to dose him yourselves. No one else can know. Harper nodded, swallowing hard. We can do it. We have to. Dr. Rivera straightened, tucking her stethoscope away. I'll check on him when I can. Be careful, chicas. After she left, we sat with Dusty in the half-dark, the three of us breathing in time. Harper showed me her sketches. Dusty's sharp, wary eyes, the shadows cast by his ribs, the way his ear flicked at the sound of my voice. She reached into her backpack and pulled out a crumpled old candy wrapper, offering it to him like a peace treaty. He sniffed her hand, snorted, and, just for a moment, leaned his head against her palm. I think he trusts you, Harper, I said, watching her face light up. I just want him to know he's not alone, she whispered. That became our new routine. Every night, we nursed Dusty's wounds and snuck him bits of sweet grain, brushing the tangles from his mane with slow, careful hands. Harper sang to him, low and sweet, while I practiced the trust-building exercises I'd seen online. Never forcing, never rushing. Dusty's eyes slowly lost their wildness. Sometimes, when the barn was truly still, I'd catch Harper dancing her fingers in front of his nose, letting him chase her laughter like a game. It wasn't long before someone noticed, someone we hadn't expected. Mr. Joseph, the oldest trainer at Cottonwood Lane, was a quiet legend. His hair was silver and always neatly braided down his back, and he walked with a limp from a fall years before. Most days he watched from the shadows, sipping black coffee and saying little. One afternoon, as I cleaned tack near the old barn, I heard his cane tap against the concrete behind me. You girls think you're sneaky, huh? I froze, rag half wrapped around a bridle. Sir, He raised a hand, silencing me. His eyes twinkled. I've seen a lot of fools in this place, but it takes guts to care for a lost cause. That Mustang reminds me of a filly I rescued once. Didn't trust anyone but me for months. He glanced at the condemned barn, then back at me. If you want to save that horse, you need patience, not pity. Fear's like barbed wire. It'll cut you if you force it. I swallowed, nodding. Yes, sir. He leaned closer, lowering his voice. If you're careful, I can show you a few things. Just keep it between us. The less Charlotte's crowd knows, the better. That night, Harper and I followed Mr. Joseph's advice. We let Dusty set the pace, rewarding every tiny step. One nudge, one breath, 1 minute standing still. Harper drew each moment in her sketchbook, documenting the slow miracle of trust returning to a broken animal. Days blurred together, our secret work bonded us, filling the cracks in our courage. I learned how to listen, really listen, to the silence between Dusty's breaths, the meaning in Harper's shy glances, the unspoken hope in Mr. Joseph's nods. The world outside, with its bullies and deadlines and threats, felt distant in those quiet hours. But even as Dusty grew stronger, the clock was ticking. The deadline for the release fee loomed, a shadow over every small victory. Still, every time Dusty let us brush his neck or nudged Harper for a treat, I believed a little more. If we could heal him, maybe we could heal ourselves too. One night, as we sat in the straw with Dusty dozing beside us, Harper whispered, "Mari, do you think people can change the way horses do?" I thought for a long moment, watching Dusty's chest rise and fall. Maybe not all at once, but yeah, one act of kindness at a time. And in the silence, for the first time in a long while, hope didn't feel so impossible. Cottonwood Lane always seemed to change colors with the weather, and as the deadline for Dusty's release fee crept closer, even the sunniest days felt heavy. Harper and I moved through our chores as usual, sweeping, feeding, hauling water, but underneath the routine our minds buzzed with worry. Every tick of the clock, every glance from the manager, reminded us how little time we had left. But something had started to shift since we began helping Dusty. The secret hope in his recovery had somehow seeped out into the barn itself, touching people who hadn't noticed us before. It started with Harper's sketches. She'd fill her pages with drawings of Dusty, his gentle eyes, his battered body, the way he leaned in for comfort. At first, she only showed me, tracing every healing scab and every new glimmer of trust. But then, one afternoon, while Harper was perched on a hay bale drawing, a small group of younger riders gathered around. "What are you working on?" one girl asked, her voice bright and curious. Harper hesitated, but I nudged her gently. "Show them." She flipped her sketchbook open, revealing a page where she'd captured Dusty's silhouette, powerful and raw. The kids gasped, pointing out the careful details, the hurt and hope shining through the lines. "Who is he?" another whispered. "He's a Mustang," Harper replied quietly. "He's been through a lot, but he's getting better." Word spread faster than we could have imagined. By the end of the week, even some parents started to notice. Mrs. Turner, whose son took riding lessons, stopped by with a gentle smile. "My boy told me about a mystery Mustang that's being cared for in secret. If you girls ever need snacks or water for him, just ask. My husband's a lawyer. If you need advice, you let us know." It was like a breath of fresh air. Harper posted a few of her sketches and Dusty's story, careful not to reveal too many details, on her private social media. To our surprise, the post was shared dozens of times. A handful of animal lovers and local advocates reached out, offering support, small donations, and even encouragement to stand up for Dusty's rights. One afternoon, Dr. Rivera found us in the paddock and pulled us aside. "Your story's getting attention, Ninas," she murmured. "That's good, but be careful. Attention can bring help, or it can bring trouble. Some folks in power don't like to be embarrassed." "We just want to help him," I replied, wiping sweat from my forehead. She smiled, squeezing my shoulder. "And you are. That's what matters." Meanwhile, Mr. Joseph quietly doubled down on his mentorship. He'd meet us behind the barn, teaching me how to move with Dusty, how to read the language of his ears and tail. "It's not about force, Mari," he'd say, showing me how to approach slowly, how to reward every calm moment. "It's about trust. Earn that, and you can do anything." Harper would sometimes draw Mr. Joseph, too. His lined face, his hands steady on the lead rope, the gentle pride that softened his features when Dusty took a treat without flinching. The sketches began to fill up the barn office's bulletin board. Even the staff who usually ignored us started leaving small notes. "Great drawing," or "How's the Mustang today?" slipped between Harper's pages. But it wasn't all easy. The pressure grew heavier each day. The $2,500 fee hung over us like a storm cloud. And every evening, I'd lie awake trying to figure out how to raise it. My parents couldn't help. They were barely making rent, and Harper's family was stretched thin. We pooled our tips, scoured Craigslist for odd jobs, but it wasn't enough. And always, in the background, Charlotte and her clique watched us, suspicion turning into open hostility. Olivia would mutter, "Why do they care so much about a worthless horse?" Madison rolled her eyes every time Harper walked past with her sketchbook. Even the manager seemed to sense something was up, glancing our way more often, sometimes lingering a little too long when Harper posted new art. One evening, as we finished brushing Dusty, Harper's phone buzzed. She'd received a message from an animal rescue group, someone who'd seen her artwork online. They wanted to know more, maybe help fund Dusty's release. Our hearts soared, but we kept the news quiet, afraid of jinxing it. Dr. Rivera, sensing our growing anxiety, invited us into her tiny office after closing. She set out mugs of cocoa and listened as we poured out our worries. "The deadline's so close," Harper whispered. "Even with all the attention, it's not enough." Dr. Rivera tapped her mug thoughtfully. "There are more good people out there than you think. Don't underestimate the power of a story, or a community that believes in justice. I'll talk to some friends, but keep fighting, Ninas. Don't let anyone take your courage." We left her office feeling lighter, if only for a moment. That night, I saw Harper upload another drawing, this time a portrait of Dusty with a child gently reaching out, hope blooming between them. Within hours, the post was shared by a well-known local activist, and our phones buzzed with supportive comments. But for every bit of hope, the pressure grew too. The manager's eyes narrowed. Charlotte's sneers sharpened. The staff whispered more. It felt like a race, our hope and support gaining ground, but the storm of consequences growing right behind it. Still, I clung to every small victory. Dusty eating from my hand, a kind word from Mr. Joseph, a message of support from a stranger. Every act of kindness, no matter how small, felt like a stone in the foundation of something bigger. We were building a network, one person, one moment, one Mustang at a time. And even though I felt the weight of fear every night as I closed my eyes, I knew we weren't alone anymore. The fight for Dusty was becoming a fight for something more, a fight for belonging, for justice, for the right to care and be cared for. As dawn broke and another day began at Cottonwood Lane, I looked at Harper and whispered, "No matter what happens, we keep going, right?" She smiled, determination lighting her face. "Right. For Dusty. For all of us." Pressure can make even the safest place feel like a battlefield. By the Friday before the Freedom Cup, the barn was heavy with nerves. Tension lurked in every corner, between riders jostling for a win, staff whispering about the mysterious Mustang, and especially among Charlotte's clique, whose eyes followed Harper and me everywhere we went. It was dusk when everything spun out of control. The day had been a blur of last-minute training. Mr. Joseph had helped me and Harper walk Dusty through new exercises in the round pen, encouraging every sign of progress. Dusty, once so timid he'd spook at the rattle of a feed bucket, now watched us with growing trust. He even let Harper braid a lucky blue ribbon into his mane, a small, silent symbol of our hope. We were cleaning up the barn aisle, Harper sweeping and me stacking buckets, when I heard a shrill giggle from behind the tack room. Charlotte's voice, loud and sharp, echoed, "You think they really have a chance? That wild mutt can barely walk straight. Madison snorted. If Mari actually tries to ride him in the cup, she'll embarrass herself, and the whole barn. Olivia chimed in. Just make sure you set things up. We can't lose to a charity case. A cold shiver crawled up my neck. I hurried back to Dusty's stall, but everything looked normal at first. Then, as I opened the stall door, Dusty reared up, wild-eyed, slamming into the back wall. I stumbled back, tripping over a bucket. Harper screamed, "Marie, look!" and pointed behind a bale of straw. A rat. Big, panicked, and frantic, it darted around the stall, squeaking and clawing, sending Dusty into a full-blown terror. He kicked, nearly catching me in the shoulder as I lunged to close the door. My heart pounded as Dusty wheeled in circles, nostrils flaring, sweat darkening his coat. For a second I froze, helpless, terrified he might hurt himself or us. But then instincts took over. "Harper, get help!" I shouted. She bolted down the aisle, slipping on the sawdust, and vanished around the corner. I spoke low and urgent, trying to calm Dusty. "Easy, boy. It's okay. Shh. Calm down. You're safe." But Dusty's fear wouldn't break. The rat was trapped, scrambling wildly, and Dusty kicked again, striking the stall door with a metallic crash. The barn manager's footsteps thundered in. Mr. Thompson, face red and furious. "What's going on in here?" he bellowed. Before I could answer, Dr. Rivera and Mr. Joseph burst in, followed by Harper, pale and breathless. Dr. Rivera quickly sized up the chaos and yanked the stall gate open, expertly shooing the rat away with a shovel. Mr. Joseph blocked Dusty's escape route, holding out both hands, his voice deep and steady. "Whoa, easy now. Nobody's gonna hurt you." "It's okay, big guy." Within minutes, Dusty stopped spinning, chest heaving, his sides wet with sweat. Harper slipped in, kneeling beside me, hands shaking. Dr. Rivera checked Dusty's legs for injuries, then shot me a worried look. "What happened?" she asked. I stammered, "A rat. Someone let it loose in here." He freaked out. It wasn't an accident. Mr. Thompson's glare shifted between me, Harper, and Dusty. "You're out of chances, Mari. If this horse is unmanageable at tomorrow's show, he's gone. No more appeals." Harper clutched my arm. "We have proof," she whispered. I remembered her hidden camera, the old phone we'd propped behind the haystack just days before, desperate for evidence of sabotage. Once Mr. Thompson stormed out, Dr. Rivera turned to us. "Let me see the footage. If it shows what you say, we'll go to the board." Harper handed over her phone, heart pounding. "It's all there," she said softly. "Charlotte's crew set this up. You can hear them on the video, planning it." Dr. Rivera nodded, her jaw set. "Stay here. I'll handle this." As the barn quieted again, Mr. Joseph knelt beside Dusty, who trembled from exhaustion. "You two did the right thing calling for help. But if you want to ride him tomorrow, he'll need to trust you, no matter what happens." I brushed a shaking hand down Dusty's neck, feeling his fear like a living thing under my fingers. "How can we get him ready?" I asked. "Let's do one more session tonight. Gentle, slow, nothing fancy. Show him you're still here for him. That's how you win a horse's heart." So as night closed in, the four of us, me, Harper, Mr. Joseph, and Dr. Rivera, worked together under the dim glow of the barn's security lights. Harper sang to Dusty, her voice a trembling thread of hope. Mr. Joseph guided me through breathing exercises, teaching me to ground myself, to move with Dusty, not against him. Dr. Rivera watched for signs of pain, ready with a calming hand. Step by step, Dusty calmed. He nuzzled Harper's shoulder, then let me slip the halter over his nose. I walked him in a slow circle, talking the whole time, letting him feel the rhythm of my words. For a moment, all the fear and rage and cruelty of the world seemed to fall away. It was just us. 2 kids, an old trainer, a tired vet, and a Mustang with too many scars. When we finished, Dusty stood, sides heaving but eyes soft again. Harper wiped her tears, smiling with exhausted relief. "He's going to be okay, Mari. He has to be." I hugged her tight. "We're going to get through this. Tomorrow we show everyone who Dusty really is." But as I locked up the barn, I felt the weight of what was coming. Tomorrow everything would be decided. The show, our future, Dusty's life. We had one shot left, and the world was watching. I looked up at the stars, whispered a prayer, and promised Dusty and Harper, no matter what, I'm not giving up. Not now, not ever. The morning of the Freedom Cup dawned thick with fog, muffling the early sounds of Cottonwood Lane and wrapping every building in a blanket of gray. I woke before the alarm, adrenaline buzzing in my veins. This was it, our one chance. If we failed, Dusty would be gone by nightfall. If we won, maybe everything would change. Harper was already awake, sitting cross-legged on her bed, double-checking the camera and organizing her sketches and the footage from the night before. She wore her lucky denim jacket, the elbows patched with paint, and her fingers trembled as she packed up. "Mari, do you think we can really do this?" I sat beside her, forcing a steady smile. "We have to, for Dusty, for us." Downstairs, the kitchen table was covered in little piles of coins and crumpled bills. We'd sold everything we could: Harper's favorite boots, my old headphones, even her sketches at the farmer's market, just to scrape together enough for the Freedom Cup entry fee. The rest had come from friends and strangers who'd seen our story online and sent $10, $20, $50 at a time. I wrote out the check with shaking hands. The barn was a flurry of motion. Trailers pulled in, kids carried armfuls of tack, and Charlotte's clique posed for pictures in their crisp white breeches and color-coordinated jackets. Charlotte eyed me with a sneer. "Should have known you'd bring that flea-bitten reject. Hope you're ready to embarrass yourself, Mari." I ignored her, keeping my head high as Harper trailed behind me, clutching the folder with our evidence. Dr. Rivera met us in the tack room, already in her vet's coat, and gave us a quick nod. "I'll keep an eye on Dusty before the show. You two focus on each other. Don't let them shake you." Mr. Joseph arrived, cane tapping, eyes bright with pride. "You girls ready?" I nodded, though my stomach churned. "As ready as we'll ever be." With Harper's help, I brushed out every last knot in Dusty's mane. He stood still, eyes gentle but alert, the blue ribbon from Harper's braid shining against his gray coat. Harper hummed as she worked, her voice low and sure, and Dusty's ears flicked back and forth like he was listening for hope. Minutes before we were due in the warm-up ring, Dr. Rivera rushed over, whispering urgently, "Charlotte's group has something planned. Be careful, they're getting desperate." Sure enough, as the horses lined up, Olivia and Madison hovered near the fence, eyes darting to a small box clipped to the rail, a hidden alarm rigged to spook Dusty when he entered the ring. Harper spotted the wires and, quick as lightning, ducked behind a stack of hay bales. With her phone recording, she caught Charlotte, Olivia, and Madison laughing about making the wild Mustang run for his life. Harper sprinted to Dr. Rivera and played the recording. Rivera's face darkened. "Stay here. I'll handle this." She took the video straight to the judge's tent, and moments later, a pair of officials followed her back to the ring. Charlotte and her friends were confronted, and the hidden alarm was removed before Dusty ever set hoof in the arena. But the air was thick with suspicion, and whispers spread through the crowd, some blaming me for the drama, others rooting for us. I tried to drown it out as I mounted Dusty, feeling his muscles tense beneath me. "We can do this," I whispered, hands trembling on the reins. "Just breathe. Just trust me." As the announcer called our names, Dusty and I entered the ring. The stands were packed. Parents, riders, local reporters. Even a few faces I recognized from Harper's online supporters. All eyes were on us. For a heartbeat, the world went silent. The first test was simple. Walk, trot, canter in a circle. Dusty moved nervously at first, his steps uncertain, but I kept my voice steady, guiding him through each movement. At the second marker, we were supposed to jump a low rail. My heart stuttered, but I remembered Mr. Joseph's advice. Patience, not pity. We made it over, barely a clip, but enough. Dusty's ears flicked back, waiting for my reaction. I stroked his neck and felt his tension fade. We picked up the pace, moving through the routine. In the stands, Harper watched, knuckles white, silently cheering with every pass. Then came the moment of truth. At the final marker, Dusty spooked. A sudden noise from the crowd, maybe, or just nerves. Instead of forcing him forward, I did something I'd only ever seen in videos. I dropped the reins, slid off the saddle, and walked to Dusty's head. "It's okay, boy," I said, just loud enough for everyone to hear. "If you're scared, I'm scared with you, but we can do this together." A hush fell. The judges watched, unsure. Charlotte snorted from her corner, but I tuned her out. Slowly, I took off Dusty's bridle, letting it fall to the sand. He blinked, snorted, and for a moment, the arena felt as quiet as midnight. I stepped back, and with just a gesture called Dusty to follow me. At liberty, no ropes, no reins. He hesitated, then took a step, then another, until he was walking at my side, head high. We made a slow circle around the arena, every eye locked on us. My heart soared. For the first time, I didn't care about the judges or the prize. I just wanted Dusty to know he was free. The crowd exploded in cheers as we finished, Dusty standing calm and proud beside me. I hugged his neck, tears burning behind my eyes. Harper raced down from the stands, phone in hand, laughing and crying all at once. We'd done it, against every odd, against every lie. We'd shown the whole world who Dusty really was, but I knew it wasn't over. Not yet. The minutes after our ride felt like a blur, adrenaline, joy, fear all tangled together as I led Dusty out of the ring. The crowd's roar echoed in my ears, but all I could focus on was the feel of his breath steady against my shoulder, the warmth of Harper's hug, and the pulse of hope beating strong between us. Dusty had done more than anyone believed possible. He'd trusted me, performed at liberty in front of hundreds of people, and shown everyone what a so-called dangerous Mustang could become with patience and love. But in the shadows beneath the grandstand, trouble was brewing. Charlotte stood with her arms crossed, jaw clenched tight, eyes narrowed as the judges gathered to deliberate. Olivia and Madison hovered behind her, whispering furiously as Dr. Rivera approached the officials, phone in hand, and presented Harper's video evidence of their sabotage. The barn manager, Mr. Thompson, caught the scene just as Charlotte launched into a protest, but the judges barely listened. A hush fell over the showgrounds as the head judge, Miss Feldman, took the microphone. "After careful review, we have determined there was an attempt to sabotage another competitor during the warm-up round." Her gaze swept over the crowd, landing on Charlotte, whose face had gone an ashen white. "The involved team is hereby disqualified from the Freedom Cup." The audience erupted in gasps and whispers. Charlotte's shriek cut through the air. "This isn't fair. They're lying." But nobody came to her defense. Olivia and Madison backed away, suddenly unwilling to share in the fallout. The judge continued, "Additionally, we are awarding a special commendation to Mari Bennett and her Mustang Dusty for their extraordinary bond and the courage they demonstrated in the face of adversity." I stood frozen, clutching Dusty's lead. Harper's hand found mine, squeezing so tight it almost hurt. Around us, people began to clap, then cheer until the applause swelled to fill the whole arena. My eyes blurred with tears I couldn't blink away. Dusty nuzzled my hair, as if he understood every word. I buried my face in his neck, breathing in the scent of hay, sweat, and something new, something that felt like victory. News spread faster than I thought possible. Parents and kids pressed forward, some asking for pictures, others just wanting to touch Dusty's nose or pat his neck. Mr. Joseph appeared through the crowd, smiling wider than I'd ever seen him, his silver braids swinging. "You did it, Mari. You both did." Dr. Rivera hugged Harper, then me, her voice low and proud. "You turned him from a ghost into a champion. No one will forget this." The judges handed us the Freedom Cup, polished silver, heavy in my trembling hands, and an envelope with a check big enough to cover Dusty's release fee, and then some. A reporter thrust a microphone at me. "How did you do it? What gave you the courage to stand up for a horse everyone else had given up on?" I swallowed, voice rough. I just knew he deserved better. Dusty wasn't broken. He just needed someone to believe in him. A camera flash lit up Harper's grin, and I realized that Dusty's story was already racing across the internet. By nightfall, there were videos on social media of our ride, our win, and even our hug at the end. The comments rolled in, messages from horse lovers, animal rights groups, even people who'd never set foot in a barn but recognized what it meant to stand up for someone without a voice. The barn manager, maybe embarrassed or maybe just finally seeing what had been right in front of him, approached with a rare, sheepish smile. "Mari, I owe you an apology. I let things go too far. You saved that horse, and you brought out the best in this place. I'm sorry." Harper's phone buzzed non-stop with notifications. "Look, Mari, we're trending. #Dusty the Mustang, #Cottonwood Lane, #Justice for Dusty." I laughed, dizzy with relief and disbelief. We really did it, Harp. As the evening sun sank over Cottonwood Lane, people kept coming. Some brought gifts for Dusty. Others simply shared their own stories, of horses they'd loved, of times they'd been the underdog, of battles won and lost. Dr. Rivera made calls to animal rescue groups and local reporters, inviting them to see how hope could take root in even the roughest ground. Mr. Joseph pulled me aside before the celebrations wound down. "Listen, Mari, there's something bigger here. With the prize money and this support, we could do more. Start something real, a sanctuary, a place for horses like Dusty, and for kids like you and Harper, who know what it's like to be pushed aside." The idea bloomed in my chest, wild and bright. "You'd help us?" I asked, hope surging. He nodded, eyes shining. "Count me in." I found Harper at the fence, Dusty's head in her lap, as she showed a group of children her sketchbook. "Did you hear?" I asked, dropping beside her in the grass. "We're not just saving Dusty, we're going to save so many more." Harper's smile was brighter than the sunset. "We can build something together, Mari. For Dusty. For everyone who needs a second chance." As night finally settled over the showgrounds, I walked Dusty down the quiet lane behind the barn. Fireflies danced in the warm dark, and the only sound was his soft breath and the distant music of laughter and hope. I looked up at the stars, whispering thanks for every moment that had led us here. For the first time, I wasn't just dreaming of freedom. I was living it, and I knew, deep down, that Dusty's journey was just beginning. A week after the Freedom Cup, the world at Cottonwood Lane felt transformed. The barn that once pulsed with tension now rang with the easy laughter of staff and visitors. Every morning, sunlight poured through the loft windows, catching on banners that read, "Welcome Home Dusty" and "Freedom Cup Champions." But beneath the celebrations, something deeper was changing, something that would outlast any trophy. The first sign came on a crisp Monday when Mr. Thompson, the barn manager, called an all-staff meeting in the main aisle. For once, his voice was softer, the bluster gone. "I owe everyone here, especially Mari and Harper, an apology. I failed to protect this barn's most vulnerable, and I let competition get in the way of decency. Charlotte, your actions were unacceptable and effective immediately. You are no longer part of this program. We have to be better than this. Starting today, we will be." Charlotte stood frozen, her cheeks flushed red, tears welling up in her eyes. Her friends, Olivia and Madison, looked everywhere but at her as she grabbed her things and left, shoulders hunched. The staff didn't clap or jeer. There was only silence, heavy and real. In that moment, I realized true justice doesn't need spectacle. It's felt most in the absence of cruelty, in the space where healing begins. The outpouring of support for Dusty and for us was overwhelming. Dr. Rivera rallied animal advocates from across the county, and soon the barn was full of volunteers, people willing to donate, build, and dream. Some came with bags of grain and fresh hay. Others brought tools, paint, even handmade banners. The story of Dusty's rescue had swept through the local news and beyond, and we found ourselves at the center of a community eager to help. With the prize money from the Freedom Cup and donations still pouring in, Mr. Joseph helped us buy a small, overgrown paddock just down the lane. He and Dr. Rivera led the effort, calling on every connection, every bit of goodwill they had built over decades in the horse world. Cottonwood Lane Sanctuary was born, not just for Dusty, but for every neglected horse in need of a second chance. Setting up the sanctuary was no fairy tale. There were endless meetings, early mornings, and more than a few setbacks. Harper and I scrubbed stalls until our hands were raw, learning how to fix leaky roofs and patch fences alongside volunteers who'd become our friends. Still, each day brought something worth celebrating. A rescued mare finding peace, a child petting a horse for the first time, a family returning just to walk the fields and breathe in the healing. Dusty, once battered and terrified, was transformed. He'd wander the new pasture head high, letting small children feed him apples and run their hands along his smooth gray coat. He was our first therapy horse, gentle with the anxious, patient with the broken. I watched him work miracles. Standing still as a boy with autism pressed his forehead to Dusty's and just breathed, both of them perfectly calm. In those moments, I understood what Dr. Rivera meant when she said, "Some wounds heal in silence. Let the horses teach you." The community rallied around us, holding fundraising events, bake sales, and open barns. Local artists painted murals, filling the sanctuary walls with images of hope and courage. Harper's sketches were everywhere. Her story, our story, reaching people far beyond what we'd dreamed. Even the staff at Cottonwood Lane Equestrian Center changed. Old rivalries faded, and the barn became a place where questions were asked, and kindness was given freely. Mr. Joseph mentored a new generation of trainers, teaching that the greatest skill in horsemanship was compassion. Dr. Rivera brought vet students from the city to learn not just medicine, but empathy. Kids who'd once laughed at the charity case now took turns brushing Dusty and leading him through gentle exercises in the paddock. One morning, As I watched Dusty help a group of nervous children with their first riding lesson, Harper sat beside me in the grass. "Did you ever think we'd get here?" she asked, her voice full of wonder. I shook my head, still half in disbelief. "Not really. Sometimes I feel like I'm dreaming." She nudged me, smiling. "Well, you better not wake up. There's still so much to do." We spent our evenings planning new programs: outreach for foster kids, animal-assisted therapy for veterans, open houses for families who'd never known a horse could change a life. Every day brought a new challenge, but also a new reason to believe in what we were building. It wasn't all easy. There were nights when I lay awake, worrying about bills, broken fences, or the next horse that needed saving. But every time I thought about giving up, I remembered Dusty's journey. How trust was built one small act at a time. How hope had grown in the spaces where fear once lived. Mr. Joseph, ever the quiet guide, stopped by often, his limp a little less pronounced with every visit. "Proud of you, Mari," he'd say, handing me a mug of strong coffee. "You turned pain into promise. That's what real courage looks like." Dr. Rivera joined us for weekly meetings, bringing news of new horses in need, offering advice and encouragement. The sanctuary team grew, as did our confidence. What started as a desperate bid to save one Mustang had become a beacon, a place where animals and people alike could find safety, dignity, and the space to heal. And at the center of it all was Dusty, the Mustang who'd been left for dead, and now led the way for everyone who believed in second chances. His story became our mission, his healing a promise that we carried forward. One evening, as the sun set in a blaze of gold over Cottonwood Lane Sanctuary, I whispered to Harper, "We did it. We really did." She squeezed my hand, tears shining in her eyes. For Dusty. For everyone. We stood together, watching as Dusty led the herd across the pasture. Free, proud, and home at last. In the months after the sanctuary opened, life settled into a new, beautiful rhythm. Gone were the days of watching every shadow, flinching at every raised voice and counting down the hours until a final, impossible deadline. Now, each morning at Cottonwood Lane Sanctuary began with the music of nickering horses and ended with the laughter of children running through tall summer grass. The work was relentless: feeding, mucking, repairing fences, caring for new arrivals who came in scared and scarred. But every task felt lighter now, colored by purpose and belonging. Harper and I took turns leading the sanctuary's programs, learning how to be not just caretakers, but teachers, mentors, and, most surprisingly, leaders. Dusty thrived in his new role as the heart of the herd. He became the horse we introduced to every new arrival, his calm presence soothing even the most anxious rescues. He was gentle with the frail and patient with the fearful. Harper joked that he was the official welcome committee, and it wasn't uncommon to find him standing quietly by a shaking horse in the paddock, sharing his calm the way someone once shared theirs with him. We built new friendships too, drawing in people from all walks of life. There was Mrs. Turner, who'd once only dropped off her son for lessons but now arrived early every week to help lead our therapy sessions. There was Miguel, a retired farrier who taught us all how to trim hooves and whispered stories of his days wrangling wild Mustangs out west. There were the kids, so many kids, some shy and withdrawn, others loud and bursting with questions, all of them finding, in this place, a sense of home. I often caught Harper sitting in the grass with her sketchbook, surrounded by children who watched as she brought their favorite horses to life on the page. She taught them to draw, but more than that, she taught them to notice. The way a horse's ears tilted when curious, the flick of a tail when happy, the slow blink of trust. Her art hung everywhere now, brightening the barn walls and making the sanctuary feel like a living storybook. Some afternoons, Dr. Rivera led animal-assisted therapy sessions. The quietest, most anxious kids would gravitate to Dusty, pressing their foreheads to his and whispering secrets into his fur. The change in them was slow but unmistakable. I saw lonely children start to laugh again. Foster kids who'd bounced from home to home discover a sense of safety. Teenagers find strength in helping a creature so much like themselves, once discarded, now cherished. The healing reached further than I could have imagined. We welcomed families from every background. Neighbors who'd once barely spoken now joined together in weekend cookouts and repair days. People shared food, stories, and dreams for what the sanctuary could become. Barriers, racial, economic, even generational, began to dissolve. In the place where competition and cruelty once ruled, we built something woven from trust, hard work, and compassion. Late one evening, Harper and I sat on the fence as the last light faded. The sanctuary was quiet except for the sounds of horses moving in the dark and the hum of crickets in the fields. I felt a weight settle over me, not of fear, but of gratitude. "Do you remember," I asked Harper, "how it felt when it was just us and Dusty, hiding in that condemned barn?" She nodded, her voice soft. It felt like we were the only people in the world who cared if he lived or died. "Sometimes I wonder," I said, "what makes a real family? It's not blood, not money, maybe not even history." Harper leaned against my shoulder. "Maybe it's just showing up for each other, not giving up, even when it would be easier to walk away." I thought about everything we'd lost, old dreams, old fears, and everything we'd gained. New friendships, new hope, a chosen family bigger than I'd ever dared wish for. That weekend, we hosted a community day at the sanctuary. The pasture overflowed with visitors, families with coolers, kids running wild, volunteers grilling hot dogs, and even a few of the old Cottonwood Lane staff. Mr. Joseph, now officially retired, sat at the edge of the field, cane across his lap, beaming as Harper unveiled a mural she'd painted with the neighborhood children, a vibrant tableau of horses and people, hands and hooves intertwined. The highlight of the day came when Dusty led a group of therapy horses in a slow parade past the crowd. Kids waved flags they'd made, and parents wiped tears from their eyes. I watched from the paddock gate as Mrs. Turner's son, once afraid to speak, gently stroked Dusty's neck, whispering, "You're my best friend." When the music died down and the crowd drifted home, the volunteers stayed late, sharing stories over lemonade as the stars blinked on overhead. I realized, in that moment, that Cottonwood Lane Sanctuary wasn't just a place for horses. It was a place where anyone who felt lost or overlooked could find a piece of themselves, a piece of family. As I walked the pasture one last time before bed, I found Harper sketching by moonlight, Dusty grazing nearby. "You ever think about how far we've come?" I asked. Voice low, she smiled, tears glinting in her eyes. "Every single day, Mari. Every single day." We stood in silence, the night stretching wide and full of promise, and I understood, at last, that healing wasn't a destination. It was a journey we took together, every day, building a future from kindness, one step at a time. Years have a way of slipping by quietly at Cottonwood Lane Sanctuary, marked not by calendars, but by the changing seasons and the rhythm of horses' hooves on soft earth. In the beginning, it felt like every day brought some new test, some challenge we didn't know if we could meet. But time, like healing, moves forward whether you're ready or not. Before I knew it, we were looking back, not just on months, but on years of second chances and small miracles. I still remember the first spring when Dusty led the herd out to fresh grass, his head held high, muscles rippling under a coat now smooth and shining. New rescues watched him, learning how to trust just by following his calm example. He was more than a survivor. He was a leader, a teacher, the heart of everything we'd built. The sanctuary grew alongside him. The fields bloomed with wildflowers, kids' laughter, and the bright paint of Harper's murals. What started as a last-ditch effort to save a single Mustang became a movement. Neighbors built new stalls, volunteers learned to train, and every year we opened our gates to more and more animals in need. Some stayed a while and then moved on to loving forever homes. Others, like Dusty, became part of the soul of Cottonwood Lane. People from all over visited, drawn by stories shared online, or simply by word of mouth. You have to see the Mustang who changed everything. Sometimes it was families who'd never seen a horse up close. Other times it was teens who'd lost their way and needed a place to start over. Sometimes it was veterans, shoulders tense with old pain, who found peace in brushing a gentle horse beneath the cottonwoods. I became the person who greeted them, shared our story, and listened to theirs. Harper's sketches filled the sanctuary walls and our social feeds, and her gentle spirit drew in children like sunlight. Mr. Joseph and Dr. Rivera trained a new crop of volunteers, always reminding us that patience and kindness were stronger than fear. Together, we made a place where nobody, horse or human, was left behind. There were setbacks, too. There were years when drought made hay scarce, or a storm tore down a fence in the middle of the night. There were losses, old friends who passed on, horses we couldn't save no matter how hard we tried. Each time the pain stung, but the community we'd built always showed up, patching, mending, grieving together. And every loss reminded us to cherish every moment of grace and joy. Through it all, Dusty's legacy only grew. He became the first therapy horse for our new program for children with trauma, his gentle eyes coaxing out shy smiles and laughter. Kids who'd been told they were too much or not enough would stand quietly by his side, hands trembling, and Dusty would lower his head, as if to say, "You're perfect as you are." One afternoon, years after that first desperate night, I stood at the paddock fence with Harper, watching a group of children brush Dusty's coat. The air was golden with late sunlight, and the sanctuary buzzed with happy noise. Harper turned to me, her eyes full of memory and hope. "Did you ever imagine this?" she asked, voice soft. I shook my head, smiling. "Sometimes I think about everything we risked, how scared we were, how impossible it all seemed. And then I look at Dusty, and I know every single moment mattered." She slipped her hand into mine. "You gave him a future, Mari. He gave us all a family." I thought of all the lessons we'd learned, not just about horses, but about what really matters. Not bloodlines or privilege, but kindness and courage. The quiet, ordinary bravery of standing up for someone nobody else saw. The truth that sometimes the smallest act, a gentle word, a helping hand, a piece of bread snuck through a stall door, can start a chain reaction that changes everything. Now, when people ask me what Cottonwood Lane Sanctuary is, I tell them it's more than a barn or a rescue. It's a living promise that compassion matters, that no one is too broken to heal, and that justice begins with lifting up the voiceless. Every year, we hold a celebration to honor the day Dusty was saved. Former rescues parade with their new families, therapy kids share stories, and volunteers old and new gather to remember why we started. As the sun sets, I always take the microphone and share the lesson that's become the heart of our mission. True value isn't in bloodlines or privilege. It's found in every act of compassion and in the courage to stand up for the voiceless, even when the world says you shouldn't. When we choose to help the forgotten, We heal ourselves and our community. Every act of kindness, no matter how small, sparks change. The crowd always goes quiet, and I see the ripple of hope on every face. I look at Harper, at Dr. Rivera, at Mr. Joseph. I look at the kids and the parents and the horses, especially Dusty, now old but proud, the light of the sanctuary. And I know, this legacy is bigger than any one person. It's a legacy anyone can join. So if you've heard our story, if you've found yourself moved, I invite you to carry it forward. Tell someone else. Stand up for someone in need. Give a little time, a little love. Because together, we can build a future where everyone, animal or human, has a place to belong. As twilight settles over Cottonwood Lane and Dusty grazes peacefully in the fields, I know that his journey will inspire generations to come. And I hope with all my heart that you'll be part of the story too. Thank you for letting me share this journey. If Dusty's story touched you, please remember, even the smallest kindness can change a life. Like and follow for more stories of hope, courage, and new beginnings.